Oh man, what a deep, deep question. I ask myself that daily. Um, I uh, I am a very fun person. I love to enjoy life. I love to explore things. I love to do all sorts of new things and see what there is in the world to learn for me and experience. As for what I do to occupy my time, make a little bit of money, I am a musician. I'm an actor. I do voice acting in anime, audiobooks, commercials, all sorts of things. I do film and on camera commercial work. I do theater. I play violin, so I'm a musician as well. My wife plays harp, and we do gigs together. And yeah, I am a type of person that loves to explore life.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of Movement Radio. I am Chip Hazard,
I'm Talon Williams.
And I'm Roger Sierra.
and we're joined by a super special guest. You may know him from Fairy Tale, My Hero Academia, One Piece, or that brand new one, God's Games We Play. We are joined by Aaron Michael. Aaron, how are you this evening?
Hey, I'm doing great. Doing really good. How are you guys? I love your sign on, by the way. Reminds me of Truman Show. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Yep.
Yes. You pick the best stuff from older, and most people don't remember it, but it's like
What once was old is
that's
now
for
new
me.
again.
Yes. So Aaron, for those who don't know, who is Aaron Michael?
Oh man, what a deep, deep question. I ask myself that daily. Um, I am a very fun person. I love to enjoy life. I love to explore things. I love to do all sorts of new things and see what there is in the world to learn for me and experience. As for what I do to occupy my time, make a little bit of money, I am a musician. I'm an actor. I do voice acting in anime, audiobooks, commercials, all sorts of things. I do film and on camera commercial work. I do theater. I play violin, so I'm a musician as well. My wife plays harp, and we do gigs together. And yeah, I am a type of person that loves to explore life.
That's awesome, man. Awesome.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So Chip asked you the question, who are you? I'm going to ask you the question, who were you before the acting, before the being a musician, before the voice acting? Where did it all kind of start for you?
Wow, that's a great question. Um, so I have been a musician since I was a kid. My parents got me started playing piano when I was young. So I've always been doing something artistically. I did like a couple of plays when I was a kid. So I didn't really get into acting as a child, but I had been involved in the orchestra going through school, elementary school, and junior high and high school. And I went to college for viola performance. I got my undergrad in viola performance. So I've always been involved in music. I mean, beyond that, I did JROTC in high school, the little military army thing going on that they try to use as a recruitment tool for high schoolers going on there. So I did that, but I was just sucked into the realm of music ever since I was a kid. I remember in high school I was studying AP physics. I was in my senior year in high school. I was doing physics, and I love science, and I wanted to go to the Air Force Academy in Colorado. I wanted to be an astronaut. Um, and I was doing JROTC, so I sort of like understood like there's a military aspect to that. So, going to be an astronaut requires some engineering. I was going to study like astronautical engineering, and I was doing physics, and I was sitting in class, and I remember Dr. Day was up there starting his lecture on whatever physics thing you were talking about. He was just going on and on, and he started to write some equations on the board and do some things, and I was also simultaneously at the time taking jazz piano lessons. And I remember like sort of spacing out and fading out, thinking about like this last jazz piano lesson that I had. And I was kind of like playing a little bit in my head, going through some cool stuff that I had in my mind. And I look up and I see the board is just full of equations and all sorts of math, and I was like, I'm not going to survive an engineering degree. So that was a moment my senior year in high school, and I was like, I need to follow this path that I'm on in music. And I did that. And I met my wife in college, and that was awesome. And I graduated with a viola performance degree. And if you don't know what a viola is, think about my situation getting a degree in that, where I was in my experience of life, like, oh, now I got to do something with this. But not long after I got my bachelor's degree, my wife and I were just doing some working. We worked in restaurants. I worked at a hotel locally, and we were teaching music and kind of like getting into the swing of things of starting life as musicians. And I was looking at hobbies as well. So I picked up a little bit of photography, and I kind of got into that. And then I was just watching some movie with Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt, 12 Monkeys. I was watching 12 Monkeys. It's a great film, great movie. And I thought, you know what? I could do that. So I checked out the local acting scene nearby, and started taking acting classes, on camera classes, and that's how I got into that. So it was sort of a path of being being a musician, being artistic, and always wanting to find ways to express myself through performing arts. Yeah, so man, great question. Getting me to think about my whole life here.
Right.
That's what we like to do. So you said you met your wife in college, right?
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. And just to meet that special person, so I guess so young and still be together, many
14
years later.
years. 14 years
Wow.
this past
Oh
month.
wow. Wow.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
Yeah. So what kind of drew you to the viola? Of all the instruments, like
Hmm.
what was that?
Yeah,
Uh
great question. So I could really tell you a great story about the great differences between violin and viola. They're both played on the shoulder. A lot of history to the viola, or to both of those. But the truth of it is, it was a girl that I had a crush on in sixth grade, and I was like, man, I heard she's playing viola. I think I want to play viola too. Yeah. The mind of an 11-year-old.
And that's how it starts.
That's how it starts. But yeah, I mean, I'd been playing piano for I guess a few years at that point. So I had a little bit of music background, and I really wanted to join the orchestra. It was just a question of like, what instrument do I want to play? And I didn't really have a strong insight into any of the differences between all the string instruments, and yeah, wanted to sit next to this girl and play viola.
I mean, it makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you said you also mentioned JROTC. Which branch of the JROTC were you uh in? Or, like, because they have Navy, Army, Air
Yeah,
Force.
it was the Army junior ROTC, and that's in high school, so it's not like the
Hmm.
collegiate level. It's the go to the class once a day, and then you have sort of your PT. It was the thing I did, um, kind of like to get out of sports. I was, man, I played sports in junior high. I think I got knocked unconscious playing football, and I was eventually relegated to towel boy on the basketball team in
Ooh.
junior high. And high school, I was like, I'm kind of done doing gym class. Let me take this for my PT classes, PE classes, and it was a lot of fun. And so being the army. I don't know what all the differences between all of them. I knew we would go to events, and there would be like the other Air Force ROTC, JROTCs that were around. But yeah, I do remember really wanting to be on the rifle team. I was really making an effort to be on the rifle team. I never had steady enough hands for that though. So
It's interesting you say that. I was in when I was in high school, I did 4 years of Navy
oh, cool,
JROTC, and I was on the rifle team.
nice,
But I
lucky
wanted to
you.
be on I wanted to be on the drill team, but it was just
Mm,
something about spinning an M16 as fast as they do. I is like every time I tried it hit me in the head and I was like, nope, I'll just stick to shooting stuff.
yeah, yeah. I remember we had those. I don't know what they are. Those old heavy ones. Um, God, they were so heavy. I did not want to do drill. I was on color guard, and so I kind of like stuck to a small group marching in lines. That's what I was really good at.
Um, and so then you progress to college, you get your bachelor in viola,
Mhm.
and then after college you just kind of did some odds and ends jobs, right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you work some jobs in college to get through. I was working at a restaurant or two over my college years, and then I worked at a local hotel, um, and then got married after we graduated, and kind of just stayed working there at the hotel while you start life, trying to figure out what to do. And then I started to teach lessons, and I thought one day, you know, I could really just work on expanding my studio and get myself out there as a musician, start playing with symphonic groups locally. And so I did that, and eventually just kind of got too busy with that real life stuff for the hotel, and I was able to stop working at the hotel and leave there. And yeah, so then I've been a freelance artist, musician for my whole life, really. After that, because I've been teaching lessons and freelance gigging. My wife plays harp, so we do duets at weddings and parties and events and such. Um, and yeah, that's what I really spent a lot of time doing. And then picked up acting and doing improv, theatrical comedic improv, a couple of years after I graduated. I went back to school for violin, my master's in violin performance, um, and that was about the same time, 2011, 2012. It was about the same time I had kind of gotten into acting a little bit. I mostly wanted to experience acting and like learning lines or being on stage or something to help with my stage fright I had as a musician. Because boy, going through school, you do a lot of juries and you do a lot of performances, but it's one of those things where you learn like the nerves really never go away. So I wanted to take on another performing art, another performance thing, thinking, okay, if I can get in front of a camera, learn lines, or get on stage and do theatrical stuff, then that will help me out in my nerves when I have to play music. And there's a lot of great similarities. There's a lot of great comparisons to be made between music and acting as a performing art. But yeah, my goal was to just get used to the nerves and figure out how to manage the anxiety that crops up when you got to do a performance of some kind. And that was really helpful, but I got bitten by the acting bug. And yeah, if you know, then that never goes away.
No, it doesn't. Um, Me and Chip were professional wrestlers for almost 20 years, and
Oh, very cool.
we would, we were told a long, long time ago, the moment you stop being nervous, that's one of those moments where you need to hang it up, because then it's like you don't care about the performance anymore. But when you go out there, if you still feel that pit in your gut, like, okay, this might go bad, but I got to go out there and do it anyway, you know. But then once
Yeah.
you go through the curtain and it melts away. So once you got the acting bug, what was your first big gig you got as an actor?
Oh man, first big gig.
Or any
Uh,
gig. You don't necessarily have to be a big one.
yeah. Well, I kind of had the beginner's luck. I actually booked a couple of commercials right out of the gate. Like within the first couple of weeks, I signed with my first agent. It was like, oh, cool. Here's some really fun commercial bookings, and I thought, wow, man, I really got this. I nailed it. And then you don't really hear anything for months or
Mm.
a year, and you really start to think, wait, do I got this? What do I got? What is it? What am I really doing? Like trying to figure this out. Um, and I had been doing. Actually, I got um, sucked into the improv world. I was with a group, an improviser comedy troupe called Take One, and uh, we would travel around the country doing anime conventions in front of hundreds of people, thousands of people eventually. Um, and so, I think because Corey Phillips heads that up, and I met him on one of the commercials I got early on back in 2012, I guess. And so joining a what is essentially a troubadour troupe, a bardic troupe of acting performers that go around doing silly improvised theater. It was a really great experience, and I got to perform in front of so many great crowds, and anime crowds especially are wild. They get loud and they get a lot of fun. Um, and so, yeah, I think joining in on that and being able to travel around, and that's how I eventually got into voice acting, meeting some directors, Caitlin Glass, and a few years after joining Take One and doing that for being on the road for a few years, um, I was able to get out there in front of other anime people, and dive into the voice acting world in that way. Um, and yeah, I'm kind of just been doing commercial work and film work since then. One of the really fun long term shows I was able to be on. Um, there's a church called Life Church, and they have a really
Hmm.
great production studio. And I was able to join on that. They have this little kids series called Connect. So I was able to join in on that and do that for several years while that was running. So that was a lot of fun. And yeah, yeah. As far as big breaks, I don't know. I'm just doing it and having fun with what I'm doing.
Awesome.
Speaking of traveling around to anime cons and everything, um, what were some of those cons that you attended? Do you remember?
Yeah. Acon was one of the big ones.
Mm,
Um, let's see. There was NakaCon early on. I know we went to Acon every year. A few, oh gosh, SciFicon in Louisiana. That's sort of a sci-fi anime convention.
mhm.
Was there several years. Um, yeah, I'm trying to remember all of the ones. We've gone to a lot of little ones. Some pop up and kind of just come and go.
Yeah.
SoonerCon, and let's see. There's one in Tulsa. I went to that a couple of times. That was early on. Gosh, it's hard to remember. So many.
No, no, no.
Traveled
I
on so many.
understand.
Yeah.
Do you still attend like Comic Cons when you get a chance, or when you're invited?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'll go when I get a chance. A lot of the big ones. I've always wanted to go to the Dragon Con.
Mm.
I think in Atlanta.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's one that's sort of been on my bucket list. But there was I go to cons. What was it? No, I got the badge. Hang on. Oh yeah, WeebCon,
Oh,
WeebCon down
WeebCon.
in Dallas. That was a lot
Okay.
of fun. That was a year ago. I was there. SoonerCon, I go in Oklahoma. So yeah, I go to conventions every once in a while, and it's a lot of fun. I don't
Yes.
I don't really do cosplay. That's a lot that I don't. I'd like to occasionally, but then I think, man, I don't want to put in that much effort doing stuff. So I don't really
It's
cosplay that
it's
much.
just another artistic avenue for you.
It is,
Exactly.
yeah, and on that, I've really had to scope out what artistic avenues I want to pursue or I want to make time for, and some that I just don't have time for.
Yeah.
You like it still amazes me when we go to conventions and we see all the effort and the time and the energy and the attention to detail that a lot of the cosplayers come in with their outfits on, and it's like, man, like you
Yeah,
specifically made this elaborate outfit to wear all day long in this hot building surrounded by all these people, but it shows the dedication you have to the thing that you love.
yeah, 100%. And I think, that's in terms of me and art that I like to make, my perfectionist style. I see that kind of stuff and I see how much goes into it. And I see how awesome it is. And I'm like, man, I would love to do something that awesome. But I know they're putting so much of themselves into it uh, that I couldn't be able to do it faithfully to what I want to do. So,
Right.
and it's not just cosplay, it's all sorts of artistic endeavors where I've had to learn how to overcome that perfectionist mindset to actually get some things done. But yeah, I see that, and man, it's really really awesome seeing
Yeah.
a lot of friends that I have that do cosplay, and I think it's really great.
Yeah.
It looks like a lot of fun. It's not something I have participated in because very similar to you, like it would have to be absolutely perfect,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and I just I would put too much time and effort, and then it would never get worn. Like, no, it's
Yeah.
perfect. I don't need to wear it.
You know
Right.
how they, you know how I've read about Henry Cavill on set, how he's such a perfectionist on set about things, and how maybe that works out for him, maybe it doesn't sometimes. But I think that's that would be my mindset if I were on some of the things that he's been on. It would be like, oh man, no, Superman. Actually, he how did he get to Earth? Was he traveling at the speed of light, or did he go through a wormhole, or what was it? We need to figure that out, and can we have some rewrites to make that happen?
Uh, Speaking of Superman, who's your favorite superhero?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
a hot debate.
I not for me. I chose Superman because I think Superman has always been my favorite, and I know some people are gonna be like all sorts of things, other things, and that's great. Um, I really I really admire Superman as a superhero, and actually tie that into a character like All Might, who I think have these same emotional pulls in their story arcs. Being a character that um, is so godlike and so magnificent, and yet inserting themselves into humanity and exploring what humanity is. I don't know, something about that story really pulls me into it. I
Yeah.
love I love that seeing somebody who has to hold back so they don't kill anyone. um, and yet the trauma that can bring, or that can go with. Um, I really love that storyline of uh, you've got your early comic book Superman who's just superhero, big, strong, and fast, right? And then Christopher Reeves comes along and really pulls in this human nature to Superman, who who Superman's mask, Kal-El's mask that he wears is Clark Kent, and I think that's a really poignant aspect to that character as well. A lot of the superheroes that we see, they put on their mask to be that superhero. Superman puts on Clark Kent. I don't know. You could probably
Well,
dive
Yeah.
into
no,
Uh,
dive into what that says.
yeah, no, it makes perfect sense because it's like you were saying, like as Superman, he is, almighty. There's what just a handful of things that can really counter him, kryptonite, the red sun, lead, that's about it, magic. But when you break it down to the human aspect, like a lot of times we have to put on a mask to go out into society,
Yeah.
and that's what he does. He has to put that mask on to go out into society so they will accept him.
yeah. Yeah, that's the crazy
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Man. So while we're talking therapy, I do have to No, but yeah, I think and that's one of the relatable things about it is there's an aspect to having to having to think very very hard about how you interact with people in society and or put on a mask or whatever your interactions in daily life are. um and I think for me one of the takeaways, and I think anyone can take this for themselves as well, is that we uh as humans, as people, we are all way more powerful than we think we are. you
Yeah.
can you can go out into the world and you can put on a smile and not be certain about how you're interacting with other people, or you can go out in the world and you can put on a genuine smile and say, hey, I hope you're having a good day, and really change somebody's whole life. In the same way that you can bring people down, you can lift people up. So that's a superpower that I think everyone has that should be recognized more.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
Amen.
Um, so not to change subjects too much, but I want to talk a little bit about your voice acting credentials and everything. When was it that you kind of first got that break in like anime dubbing? Um, do you remember that first one that you did?
Yeah. So I had been talking with Caitlin Glass and Corey and I through Take One. We go to conventions and we sort of meet some people. Corey and I ended up working on a project with Caitlin, sort of doing some film work for one of the shows she was working on, doing some extracurricular interviews with other voice actors and such. And so I met Caitlin and talked with Caitlin. We were meeting up weekly for filming of this. Sakura Quest Fest is the show, and it was a what was the breakfast show? We did Sakura Breakfast Fest or something like that. And so we were like filming her interviewing a lot of the cast members, and yeah, she was able to bring me in for some sessions, practice session, and then that turned into some Walla groups and bit parts, and back in, I guess it was 2016, 2017, back in the Funimation days, directors would bring you in and you go in and kind of you're hanging out around the studio, and you go in for one session and maybe you might poke your head around to some other rooms and other directors and see if anybody needs anything. It was kind of, it was very intimidating, but also kind of casual in that way, but not casual at all. It was a very, very fine line to walk between, hey, I'm an actor here. Let me just meet some people and pop my head in and say, hey, see if you need any voice for anything. And they might be like, hey, yeah, sure, come on in. You read a bit part for this. Let's hear you. And you just do a bit part that they had to fill out for the day. Um, and so that's kind of how it got started. Eventually, your name's on the roster, and other directors start pulling from that, and they test you out and see what you sound like. So it was like one of the first times I had been in the studio, maybe the first or second time, but Colleen pulls me in for my hero in season 1 for this hero character that pops on for a couple of lines, and I was just like, reading for my hero, right? What? Oh yeah, sure, yeah. And she starts out, "Are you familiar with the show?" Yeah. I'm kind of familiar with the show, uh, and so trying to be casual and cool about it, but also like, this is so awesome. I'm a hero on My Hero Academia right away. So much fun.
So, do you enjoy the voice acting? Do you enjoy the live action stuff more, or is it about the same for you in terms of like, I guess the feeling you get from each? Because I'm sure it's different as far as the work, but it's also, I'm guessing the excitement and the fulfillment is kind of the same, or is there a difference between the two?
It's definitely different. Um, so in each medium in the acting realm, um, voice acting is, well, specifically anime, like going into Crunchyroll or going into the studio to record anime, um, is similar to improv in that it's sort of like you don't really know what you're doing. You get in there, you do the thing, big high, and then you're kind of like riding that for a little while, and then you're done. Like as soon as you leave the studio, like cool, that was it. Unless it's a recurring character that you've got, you're going in and doing some wall or doing some bit parts, and it's a lot of fun, and then you're done. And then you leave the studio and you're like, okay, cool, now I'm headed home. So it's really kind of just quick. And sometimes you know what character you're going in for, so you know what the vibe is, but you never get a script. You don't get a script for those things. You don't, there's not rehearsal. You get in the booth. I'm sure others have talked about this. It's really quick. It's sort of just right into the fire. They play you the Japanese dub. You hear it, get a feel for it, and then you read it once or twice, and then give your best performance, and then that's it. The director will take what they like. Then you move on to the next line. Counter that to something like theater. I'll be doing Hamlet in a couple of months. We'll be starting rehearsals in September. Uh,
Nice.
and theater is, a month or 2 months of rehearsing on scripts, and you've got, depending on your role, you've got hundreds of lines. You've got so much script to learn. But you've got a long time to work on it. You work on blocking, you work with the other actors, you work out scene details and such. And then you do 18 or 20 performances or whatever your schedule is like. And it's night after night after night, a lot of the same stuff. And so that's its own joy, but it's also repetitive. but it's so fulfilling in that way, because you're able to go in night after night and sort of rediscover some things and play around with some things. Now Shakespeare, we don't change lines, but I think there's joy in acting and in discovering new things each night. All through the rehearsal process, you're playing around with things and you're taking what's really great and letting it stick. But even then, on performance nights, you don't let it get dull. You don't want to go in not nervous. You don't, you don't want to go in feeling empty about it. So there's all sorts of fun and joy to be had in that. And then, you get done and you're like, wow, that was a whole month of just really this great, fulfilling process of performing that you can hold with you in whatever way you choose. And so that's a lot of fun too. So between these two things, there's a variety of ways to really find what you like about this whole acting experience. For me, overall, I enjoy a lot of it. I really do like going in, getting it done. I like improv comedy for that. You go in, you do a show. It's theater, but it's not long. It's not drawn out. You have a lot of fun, and then you can say, okay, that was really great. I'm leaving the stage now, and I'll be done. Voice acting, you go into the booth, you have a lot of fun. You read, you do some crazy characters. You really dive in, get your body moving, and then you're done. And say, okay, that was awesome. Now Out of here. Cool.
Awesome.
That sounds amazing. Um,
Yep.
what all different like accents and stuff can you do?
Um, I've I've practiced on a lot of different accents. So what accent would you like?
No, it's just what are some of your favorites that you can do, or least favorites? There's a good one.
No, least favorites? Oh man, I don't know. Um, So I've started working on being able to transition from a lot of the different accents. You always want to start out with something that kind of comes easier to you, like Scottish. Kind of just lands in there, and then try to figure out how to transition that into a royal pronunciation English accent of sorts. Really work on the nuances that occur there. There's a lot of differences that can pop in and pop out, but I really enjoy discovering how to maintain what my voice is and some natural characteristics of my voice while I do that. And so working on those transitions from one to another is a lot of fun. Uh, and that's what I do in audiobooks. Sometimes you'll have characters that have all different things. So I've made a practice of sounding different just on the fly. Um, I think for ones that are my favorite, the Scottish is really fun and easy to get into. It's always kind of gets your voice a little bit heavier, and you come on down here depending on how uh, uh you know how Scottish you want to be. Are you a Scottish newscaster? Because that's going to be different than a heavy Scotsman that's throwing giant trees and logs and such. Um, I, my acting coach the other day threw a curveball. He said, "Okay, do this scene, but now you're a Russian. You're a Russian spy." And I was like, "Okay, got it. I am Russian, and I'm doing this scene now." And just being able to dive into that accent on the fly is a really great skill that I feel like I've honed mostly through my improv comedy. That is been very helpful to be able to just practice that on stage in front of people, and it doesn't matter if you get it right or not because it's comedy and it's always fun. Um, yeah, so I do a lot. And as far as like UK accents, I've done some work on studying the differences between like a Yorkshire Northern English accent and a London accent and such like that. That's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um,
Go ahead, Alan.
no, I just had another question. Um, we've asked many voice actors this over the course of the last several interviews that we've done. With the advent of AI, artificial intelligence being adopted in some way within the entertainment industry, whether it be voice acting, whether it be, script writing, other things of that nature. What is your honest opinion about the usage of artificial intelligence in the entertainment industry?
In the entertainment industry specifically, um,
All forms of
I'm
entertainment, whether it be animation, voiceover work, commercials, anything,
yeah,
audiobooks.
I'm not particularly worried about it. In a sense, so I over last year I was an audio engineer for a online learning educational program. I would work with the voice actors and voice some of the lines myself, but they had thousands of lines of dialogue for their education program because it would go online and it would reach out to kids across the country, and so they had and these were like one line things that the kid would like. They would ask a question, the kid would select an answer, and go on to the next page. So you needed like, boom, here's a quick voiceover, here's a quick voiceover. And they phased into using AI voices for that. And they kind of no longer needed me. They were like, okay, well, Aaron, we can work with you. You plug and chug these AI voices, and that's no longer fun when you're not listening to someone, you're not actively working with a live voice, but it is what it is for thousands and thousands of lines of dialogue. I have my own qualms with that because this is for some non-English speaking students or non-native English speaking students needing to hear lines and learn the English language, and then you've got sort of this really cheap AI voice teaching them how to speak the language. It didn't sit right with me. And they phased me out, and so it was sort of like, oh, okay, cool. They're going the cheap and dirty route. That's okay. They got thousands of lines, to do week after week, so I get it. But honestly, there's an element of live performance. There's an element of thought and emotion that every good actor has to learn. That's the craft. You learn essentially how to be human, in front of a microphone or in front of a camera, and how to present that authentically, while also maintaining clear diction and technicals. So there's a lot of training that really makes you realize, like, that's, that may be easy for a machine to recreate and draw a few straight lines and then maybe morph those lines one way or another. But I don't know, there's a uniqueness to everyone's voice that you just can't really match. And then there's directability. A director saying, no, do a little more like this. And I know in the AI world, you can plug in a line and then have it say one word with a little more emphasis or a little less emphasis, but that in itself requires somebody listening to it making artistic choices about how the line is read and done. So in a sense of really getting into the creative process of having line deliveries or having actors do something, there's artistic choices made every step of the way. And as much as it's, I don't think it's something to fear, but I also know that it's something that is here and it's not going anywhere. And so learning how to use it. NAVA, the National Association of Voice Actors, has really great resources on AI information. And I've listened to a lot of that. Karen Gilfrey talks a lot about that. Jamie Muffett, they with NAVA, they really go into a lot of the great uses for AI and how to protect yourself from it, but also how to understand it so that we don't want to be fearful of it. When the camera came along, when the photography camera came along, everyone thought, well, I guess artists are out of business now. Who's going to paint portraits anymore when you can just take a photo? But painting a portrait is its own art, and then you artists learn how to get more creative painting portraits. And then photographers, kind of got bored doing a standard photo. So you get creative with how to use a camera, how to take photos, how to mix that with other photos and do all sorts of cool things. So AI as a tool, I think is fine. You just have to, it's one of those frontier things where you have to watch out on who's on the leading force of that aspect of creativity and what are they doing with it. And one way that here's what I want to see AI get into. I want to see AI in my stove. I want to know when my potatoes are burning. I want to be like, hey, I'm putting the potatoes in now. Just make sure they're done by 7 and not overcooked. Thank you, Aaron. I'll have that done for you. Great. Perfect. And then just walk away. That's where I want AI like visually scanning my food and saying, oh, yep, nope, it's cooked. It's done. You can turn the oven off now. So yeah, as far as the video and how it's used, I think, I don't think AI in and of itself is a real problem aspect for our future or a real fear factor. I think it's the money managers and the people who make the profit in the industry and what decisions they make. Those are who we have to watch. And a lot of, especially in the entertainment industry, in animation right now, there are a lot of bad decision makers, a lot of bad decisions being made by decision makers. I'll say that. And those are the people that we need to watch out for. You need to get with your unions. You need to get with the media houses and the creatives, and realize that we as creators are truly the ones in control, and the big CEOs with their big studios closing down this animation studio or that animation studio, that can only last for so long. What are they going to replace it with? Um, Creative people will always figure out how to be creative, and that's the joy of art. So I don't fear AI. I have lost work to AI, but honestly, you just you move on to the next thing, and you decide, like, I got to that point where I decided the work that I was doing with that educational thing, editing audio, that was great while it lasted, and I was thankful for it. And I don't want to continue working on AI there, and I'm glad to be phased out of that. I'll work on things with my own real people.
All right, makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it's a great perspective.
Yeah. But back to your voice techniques. Which of the voices that you do is the hardest for you to maintain over a longer session as opposed to those quick one and dones?
Um, I think anything that's deep and growly or screaming. Uh, there are a few dragon roles that I've had, beast roles that require some real deep guttural things. I don't want to do it right now because you sort of discover how, what's your stamina like with your voice, and it requires a lot of special knowledge and practice in taking care of your voice. Um, Andrea Toyas, the casting director at Blizzard, was talking to us about that, and in terms of Blizzard, Diablo, and a lot of the games that go through Blizzard, there's just a lot of beast voice work, a lot of orc voice work, deep guttural kind of things that she was saying this, and I don't know if I like it, but I guess it's true. It's not a matter of if you damage your voice, it's a matter of when and how you damage your voice. And so always be practiced and well watered and well protected in your technique. So I always make sure to try to at least save the screaming auditions for last. When I have a list of 10 auditions I need to do, I'm like, okay, cool. These are my natural voices. This is where I fit. These are fun, casual voices. And then these are the deep guys that really get heavy and screamy. And I'll do those last because I know when I'm done auditioning on some of those, I'm like, yeah, my voice is just at a different place. It stretches and it moves, and you wanna just be aware of that. So I really especially in shows like One Piece, there's every voice actor that's gone through Funimation or Crunchyroll has had their time with One Piece, and there's just a lot of screaming on that show. Yeah, so
Oh,
that's what I really try to um, take care of when I'm in the booth. Really don't want to overdo it.
oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, and then some of the more recent anime that you're in Solo Leveling, which has been huge uh this year.
Yep.
Uh you're in Windbreaker, which has also been another huge one, newer one.
Yeah.
And then like I said at the beginning of the interview, you're also in God's Games We Play.
Yeah.
So three fairly new IPs there. Where do you see each of your characters going uh there?
Well, Solo Leveling was really fun, and actually, I recorded that for, like, I think it was the first and second episode. Had a like one line for the guy in the first episode, and then a few lines in the second episode, and then he got stomped. second
Yep.
episode. So I don't, you know, every show you kind of wonder, well, there's always ghosts and there's always characters that return, but I don't see him going anywhere. Um, with Windbreaker, Yanagida, I just recorded new lines for episode 13 um, just yesterday. He is a very soft-spoken dude, man, a few words. So I've only been in a couple of episodes with him, but Inman was just saying how they're already throwing out season 2,
Mhm.
and with shows like that, it's it's just kind of a toss up as to what characters will come back. What characters have more to do. Something he could get a whole episode one of these days. I just don't know. So yeah, and God's Games We Play. I forget the character's name. He was what was his
Uh,
name?
Orvon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cap Orvin. That's right. He might come back. I don't know. It was a fun episode. And yeah, those kind of characters, guys, captains, people with a crew. You never know if they're going to come back and help your protagonist in some way in the future. Um, I just you never know, especially with uh, anime and at Crunchyroll, and you never know when you're coming back and for what. I had no idea when I was doing One Piece. I just Anthony brought me in for it was just a bit part, turned into Tank being a named character and having a whole arc in the Dressrosa arc. So that was a lot of fun to just be back in the studio frequently. Um, I let's see, it was Cheat Skill. I was Owen in Cheat Skill, and he's in just about every other episode, so that was a lot of fun. You never know when a character's gonna come back, but I would really want to see Yanagida come back strong in Windbreaker and have a have a big have a big episode for him. That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That would be.
Yeah. Well, we talked about like you getting into anime and stuff like that. Was you a fan of anime as a kid growing up? Did you watch any anime growing up?
I saw a few shows, Dragon Ball Z. I watched Gundam Wing a little bit. I was a kid that didn't grow up with cable, so I
Okay.
didn't. I was like kind of out of the loop for a lot of that. But I watched some of the standards, the classics. And
Okay.
then you grow up a little bit, swing back around and catch Cowboy Bebop. You're like, oh wow, yeah, this is a solid gold show.
Yes.
The kind and going back and watching anime as an adult, I think is really great too, because then you can be like, oh, I really appreciate these shows a whole lot more than I would have as a kid. So,
Yeah.
in some ways, you feel kind of left behind, fear of missing out. You want to know what you missed, but in other ways, you can always just go watch stuff.
Yeah.
Uh, do you go and watch any of the episodes of the anime that you're in to see how they turned out? Uh,
Yes, yeah, um, yeah. I really, I like Cheat Skill. I dove into that. That's a fun show. It's not the most popular, but I really enjoyed. And actually, I'll do my best to watch it on Crunchyroll if I know I'm going in for some role, or if I know I'm going in for an episode. I'll watch the episode to just see what's going on in the show. So um, that's not always common. Some people do it, some people don't. I like to just do my homework and watch the show beforehand, and then I like watching the shows that I've been in, but also to listen to the other actors, because I want to know how my fellows in the studio are doing and what they're doing. Um, and then you can see them and be like, hey, great job on this or that show. So that's a lot of fun just to see, because you're talking with people in studio and everyone sounds normal and stuff. And then you hear the production quality that's gone into the show. And sometimes, you really sound kind of different than you might think. You're like, wow, did I sound like that? That's pretty good. You
Right.
know, I guess it's that performance anxiety sometimes, even in the booth on days when you're just reading a couple of lines, you're like, oh man, I could have done that better, and then you hear it and you're like, oh wow, that turned out great actually. I really like how that's surprising to me.
Right.
So that's fun. That's a fun experience.
Mhm.
And then I make it a point to listen to shows that I wanted to be in or might have auditions for later because I want to see what that show is like. I want to hear like Blue Lock. A lot of guys in that show, a lot of friends in that show, and I'm like, season 2 is coming up. Let me do my homework and figure out what works for that show and
Yeah.
how it's put together.
Yeah, I think we've already met half the cast of Blue Lock. I think at
Oh
this
yeah,
point,
nice.
from all the conventions that we've done so far. But going back to what you were saying a minute ago, yeah, is that even if you just have a couple of lines in the booth, you still have that anxiousness, that nervousness whenever you're getting ready to perform these lines because it's like you're hoping and anticipating that the final result is just as good or if not better than what you intend for it to be. Correct?
Yeah, yeah. And another aspect of it is, and this was kind of this was kind of an experience that I had to figure out early on how to deal with going into a studio setting where the directors are there for 6 to 8 hours a day working on their things. They're dealing with all of the voice actors that come in and out. Some of the other voice actors that are coming in weekly or more, multiple times a week to record all sorts of roles and characters. You kind of see people and everyone gets used to it. And it's like an office, you go into the studio and it's like, oh wow, this is just a real place that people sit down and work. And I'm mostly dealing with the director and the engineer. And then there's other people that work there at the studio that work all behind the scenes. You see, this is a real office environment. So you have to go in being ready to be a real human. Put on your human mask and say, I'm a fully functioning human. I'm totally normal, and I'm about to go into a booth and expose myself emotionally and try to be vulnerable and try to deliver an artistic performance in a box in front of director and engineer that are like, hey, yeah, great job. But they all want the best for you, but they're also just doing their work. You got 30 minutes to get something done, and then you got to move on to your next session, and they just do that back to back to back all day. So you've got to kind of learn that dynamic, and then you've got to go be an artist and try to do a performance. And sometimes the performance is just market guy number one saying, hey, want to buy some fish? And sometimes it's a deep role that requires a lot of thought and care into the emotional state of that person and where they're at and what they're about to deal with. So yeah, going in as an artist and saying, okay, cool, I'm going in to do some lines. Also, I have to interact with people. Wait, I have to be a human. And oh yeah, how's it going? Yeah, it's really good. Yeah, my cat threw up on my carpet the other day. Oh, session time, gotta go. See ya. Just trying to be normal. It's an interesting juxtaposition. It's kind of a learned, practiced skill.
It's interesting.
That is. Now, do you do any ADR work, or do you have aspirations to do any ADR work?
Um, yeah, ADR work. You mean like dubbing live action,
Hmm.
or
Yes.
um, yeah. If that opportunity pops up, I'd love to. I don't have particular goals for ADR work. Um, I really want to get into video games.
Ooh.
I've been doing some indie game jams and trying to dive into video game side of things because that's a lot of fun. But it's also very different than um, anime and even ADR dubs because I've done a little bit of it in the past, and that's its own kind of different type of dubbing because mostly because of the lip flaps. There's lip flaps in anime where it's just like puppet going ba 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 ba. Uh, so live action film overdubbing that, you've got a person there with all sorts of facial expressions and all sorts of emotional. They're a living human right there on the screen, and they're moving their mouth in unique ways, and so you really want to take care of that in as much as you can to deliver an already acted performance. So that's its own unique skill. Um, but yeah, as far as man, I don't even know. I know there was a studio I worked with before that did ADR work, but I wouldn't know who's doing the ADR work right now, at least down in Dallas.
Yeah.
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 You talk about go ahead,
Go ahead,
Chip.
Talon. I was just
Oh,
saying,
look,
what draws you to the video game aspect of wanting to do dubbing in video games or
that was my question.
voice acting in video games?
That was my
I
question. Yeah.
Yeah, just experience. I've been playing games for forever. So I think hearing hearing some really fun performances like in Borderlands, hearing some people that I know doing that work, I'm like, oh man, I want to do that because aside from anime, I watch anime. I'm a fan, a casual fan. I'll say this: I'm not well experienced in as much as I know a lot of really great fans are. But I love video games, and I love deep story video games. I'm just currently playing Elden Ring through right now. I just dropped their DLC, and so hearing the performances in that, or like Baldur's Gate, hearing stories about the voice actors on set and watching some behind the scenes stuff and seeing what they got to do, the motion capture, all that stuff. That sounds really fun. And so mostly it's just knowing the depth of character and story that you can get into in video games. That's my big pull. I love deep stories. I love great big stories that have big arcs and big conclusions and big emotions. I love that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the state of AAA games right now. Anyway, is these big performances, and
Yeah.
you get to go be a full actor, um, in those roles in something that is visually designed, kind of with your performance in mind.
Yeah.
That's another
Any,
big pull is that. Yeah.
any particular, like as you just mentioned, like deep story, like any particular genre of deep story, like horror, epic, kind of, like any particular, like I mean, like off the top of my head, I think like the one game that I remember, I guess I would think like what you said, like an Elder Ring or a Skyrim or even like an
Yes.
Assassin's Creed or a God of War or something along those lines.
Yep.
Like those type of games are like the
Yeah.
ones that you like invest yourself more into than others.
Yeah. 100%.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah. And I mentioned Baldur's Gate just because that's that game should be held up as the standard. Like this, not the standard for gameplay. I know it's a D&D game. I love D&D. Play a lot of D&D. It's a great way to improvise with friends and do tabletop games. And as a DM, I love being characters and that stuff. So Baldur's Gate as a D&D game and as a style of play is one thing, but as far as the production value and the quality that they delivered, that should be held up as a standard for studios to emulate. And I'd love to see more stories about all sorts of studios that are making these big titles and really taking care of their team, their production teams, and their actors and such, in ways that Larian Studios did. So that's really something. I think it goes back to that. I think it's going back to being a part of a production team that, I don't want to say family, but it's a group of people that want to take care of each other, and
Yeah.
that are able to do so. And again, I talked about big money CEOs, people controlling things, pulling the strings. Everything kind of comes down to a bottom line, and that can really be a killer of art. And I think with Larian Studios, they've really knocked it out of the park in terms of creating something that is a beautiful world to play in, and it's so vast. Being able to pull off a game like that is mind-boggling for
Right.
me. So yeah, deep epic games. I love fantasy. I love sci-fi.
Yeah.
Mass Effect. You know that some of these
Yeah.
really great titles. I love sci-fi and fantasy kind of stuff. So I'd love to be. You know, I think everyone wants to be a part of the shows that you're a fan of. It
Yeah.
really is, and that's why you know, like My Hero. I was so excited, and I eventually got to be called in for a few more roles, and then I got this named role for My Hero Academia, and that was a lot of fun, because I love that show to death, and um, that's where you go in and you're like, oh man, it's a spike of joy that you can carry with you for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, being a part of titles that I would play. I would love that. That's the goal.
All right. Well, Aaron, we don't want to keep you too long this evening. We'll wrap up with one last question. If people wanted to follow you so they know what you're going to be doing next, or what convention you may be appearing at next, or whatnot, where can they see you at?
Aaron Michael, VA. I am Aaron Michael VA on Instagram, Twitter. I don't post a lot on TikTok, but I've kind of been dabbling in TikTok every once in a while. But I am Aaron Michael VA across those socials. AARONMICHAELVA. Yeah, that's where you can find me and see what I'm up to. Uh, and get in touch.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And without breaking any NDAs, what is forthcoming for you? I know you mentioned you're going to be in Hamlet coming up in a couple of months. What else do you have coming?
Well, there was something that I was able to audition for recently that would be super amazing for me. Uh, we'll see. Fingers crossed. And that's all I can say about that. Uh, other than that, I'm just I really I don't have anything major coming up. It's kind of a slow season right now across the industry, and that's okay because that's just time to practice the craft. I'm in an acting studio, um, Oklahoma Film Actors Studio in Oklahoma City, led by Kyler Kaufman, which is really great new studio that's been super fun to be a part of. There's a lot of great people working in that studio in that space, um, and I'm making a lot of great connections in that in the film world. I'm looking forward to reaching out and connecting with convention runners, because I've just and you guys reached out to me and we got in touch for this interview. I'm just now at a place where, and this goes back to my own personal holdups. I think I mentioned earlier. I'm just now at a place where I feel like I can accept like all of the cool things that I've done as an artist. It's one of, you know, being your own judge is one of the hardest things. But I'm at a point where I'm like, no, you know what? Uh, I have done really a lot of cool stuff, and I will continue to do so. And I want to be able to share that with people. So I'm getting connected with like Megan and Josh with Fandom Events. I'm going to talk to them about possibly joining in on some conventions that they're running. Um, and I'm reaching out to a few other conventions, trying to get involved in this anime world so that I can, I don't know, talk with fans, talk with people that want to know about this kind of stuff because I love talking about it. So you're not taking up my time at all because I love talking about the art and the craft.
Yeah. We
Awesome.
know some people. We know several.
Cool.
We can help you out.
Yeah.
Cool.
I
All
can't
right.
make you any guarantees, but I can definitely say we'll put your name out there. Absolutely.
You know, this is an industry of no guarantees. So you just got to enjoy the process.
Yep.
Correct. You are
Right.
correct there. Um, but we were once told that the greatest thing that a man can share is his time. Um, and we greatly appreciate you sharing your time with us this evening.
That's lovely. Well, thank you so much for having me and allowing me to uh, indulge and talk about all this because I love it.
Awesome.
Awesome.
One more question before we get out of
Oh,
here tonight. Is
Sure.
that a Dragon Force poster behind you?
Heck yeah.
Awesome.
There we go.
Awesome.
There it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
I'm
I went to
looking,
see
I'm
them-
like, okay, I don't know if it's Dragon Force or Kingdom Hearts. I want to say it's Dragon Force though, because it's kind of blurry on my screen. I was looking, I'm like, I think that's Dragon Force. I'll ask.
Heck yeah.
So awesome. Yes. All right. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Aaron, if you want to just hang on for just 1 second while we pay a couple of bills. Thank you guys so much for watching tonight. Again, Aaron, we appreciate you for being here joining us tonight. Chip, Roger, anything you guys want to say before we get out of here this evening?
As always, please do not leave without leaving a like, comment, share, and subscribe on Spotify and right here on YouTube.
Your turn, Roger.
And as always, thank you guys for the great support. Thank you for, following, giving us comments, everything that just pretty much helps us do stuff like this, where we get to interview people in the business and also just learning about the business itself. And, you never know what you're going to find out.
Exactly. And for those of you guys who do want to continue to support Movement Radio, make sure you check out streamlabs.com/Movement Radio /merch and go copy some merch. We got the old school logo, the new school logo, our Dragon Ball Z inspired merch, our My Hero Academia inspired merch. And hope you guys do enjoy the merch. We got more ideas coming up down the road. Again, Aaron, thank you so much once again for joining us tonight. We really do appreciate it. And thank you guys for watching. Until next time, I'm Talon Williams.
I'm Chip Hazard.
I'm Roger Sierra.
And this